Good evening. This is the Town of Ossining Planning Board for November 7th, 2018. The first item on the agenda will be the Lehrman and Kaiser General Electric matter. But could we first go around the room and introduce ourselves again?
Carolyn Stevens, board member.
Greg McWilliams, Vice Chair.
King Washington Chair.
Jim,
Gareth Bethlehem, board member.
Jim Bassinas, board member.
Nancy Arcia, consulting engineer to the planning board.
David Stallman, planning consultant to the town.
Kathy Zalantis, planning board attorney.
Great. Is the applicant for the first item here?
Yes.
This is for the General Electric subdivision?
Yes.
Line realignment?
I'm Ralph Mastromonaco,
Yeah.
consulting engineer, and representing General Electric
Sorry?
Company. It's a public hearing.
Oh, it's a public hearing, yes.
Essentially, the General Electric Conference Center is hoping to attach about 1.4 acres of property to its conference center. The property is owned by the Lehrman and Kaiser owners adjoining. And in order to do that, it's the, if you look on the map, it's the four-sided figure to the right of that development. Some time ago, we actually took some additional property from the same parties, maybe about 10 years ago. And this is essentially just redoing that, adding a little bit more property onto the General Electric Conference Center. In order to do that, we have to subdivide 1.4 acres off the Lehrman property. Then we have to essentially dissolve the property line between General Electric and that one piece. It will be done on the same. It will all be done on the same action filing of subdivision map. There is no construction associated with this application. It's merely a division line change. That's basically it. It's fairly straightforward.
Okay. Does the board have any questions at this time? Okay. Staff, like, we need to have a memo on this memo?
We do, and we have precious few comments. One comment that we talked about at the last meeting was that eventually since this is a one-step process instead of a two-step process for major subdivisions, that being preliminary and final, it's just a one-step process for a minor subdivision. So rather than naming this drawing preliminary plat, it should just be subdivision plat. And then there ought to be a bulk regulations table which shows conformance of these lots with their respective zoning districts for the GE property, the DE districts, and for the Lehrman Kaiser property, the R30 district. And then we just mentioned that this is an unlisted action with respect to the seeker process. So there's no need for designation of a lead agency here.
Does the applicant have any responses?
Well, the only response I have is that it's a preliminary plat until we get preliminary approval. So what I'm hoping is that you could authorize a resolution of approval with the condition being that we conform to Mr. Stallman's comments.
Any other comments from the board at this time? Okay. No? Any members of the public?
Sorry, just
Even though we did not need to designate a lead agency, we did send notice to the county of Westchester Health Department, because they have to sign off on this before the plat can be filed with the county clerk's office. So we did send out a designation of lead agency notice, and 30 days from whenever that went out, the planning board
24th.
can declare itself lead agency. There was no need to do that because it's an unlisted action, and a positive declaration is not going to be issued, but we did it anyway. You can do it.
Okay. Does this change the timeframe then?
Well, because we did it, we should wait the 30 days, so it's, and then we could accept lead agency status.
It's not on the critical path because we have no resolution of approval for tonight. The next meeting would be
So it,
a month away.
so it would work out for the next meeting.
Okay.
Works out fine.
Because public knows at this point that we don't have a meeting on the 21st.
Right, right. So designation of lead agency is not on the critical path.
Are there any,
Yeah.
are there any members of the public here who wish to speak on this?
Hi, my name is Violet Benny Werstein, and I'm a neighbor. I wish them the very best with their move, and I don't want to get in the way of this, but I want to make sure that this piece of property in no way abuts my property, or there's no issue with the property lines. They had constructed a fence years ago, and there was some confusion, and it became a whole nightmare. So I'm sorry, from this, I'm really having a hard time, okay? I don't need it. I'm really having a hard time from this, seeing exactly what the layout is, where their house is, where my house would be in relation to this parcel. Are there any other images? Are there any other photographs, something that would make it easier to see?
What's your name?
Violet Benny Werstein.
Is she an adjacent property owner according to your map?
Well, they were given a notice to come to
That's why I'm here.
You came to the public hearing, so I'm not sure what the conditions were, but that may...
Do you have adjoiners?
Yes, they should be on the map, there should be adjoiners. You can zoom in on that.
Is she on there?
Brian?
No.
A
Ryan
letter
abuts the
from
property.
Brian.
Jim? Mr. Roberts here before you want to teach your
No, it's not Brian.
Werstein, yes.
Oh, okay.
Right, so this is your property. Did you raise that a little bit? Up.
Yeah, it's on the bottom of the sheet.
This is your property. It says now or formerly Werstein.
Mhm.
So you live
Right.
south?
Okay, just wanted to make sure, sorry to take up anyone's time, I just didn't want there to be a problem. We've had one once already, and I wish Scott and Susan the very best. Thank you.
Not a problem.
I
Before we-
just- But I just want to know, why was I notified, since it's close to me, but not really?
You're adjoining.
You're adjoining the Lerman property.
Oh, okay, but
But
I'm
not
not,
the
this
GE property.
extension really, from what I'm seeing, really has nothing, no.
But you're adjoining the property that's being subdivided.
Okay, all right, well, thank you very much. Oh, can I ask one more question? The subdivision, what will the uses be of the property?
There's no use of the property, it's vacant.
And will it remain vacant?
For how long, I don't know, but
Ah.
for foreseeable future, yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's no plans that I know of.
I know that, but, you know, I mean, is there gonna be a 10-story building popping up at some point?
I doubt it.
It's not something.
There are no plans. We
You
haven't
can
been
say
given
that
any
we're not zoned for that, and look what the Sunshine Home is doing to my neighborhood. I'm sorry, it's a really serious issue, so, you know, I'm noted, thank you, and thank you.
If they were to do anything with it, other than put a single-family home there, they would have to come back to the planning board.
Thank you.
Okay, just for the record, we received a letter from Charles L. Bryant at Cedar Lane, Charles L. Bryant III, letter dated November 7, 2018, expressing unconditional support for the application to the subdivision. Bryant is the neighbor to the property in the north, adjoining the Lehman property that's the application that matter here. So Sandy, you'll put this in the file as well?
Yes.
Any other comments from the public? Questions? Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry. Yes.
I haven't had a chance to look closely at the survey or the map that you've shown here. I was wondering if I'm seeing correctly that there's a stream across there?
No,
No.
it's a fence, about the trail or a fence. Trail
Let
and
me
a
just
fence.
point to what I'm talking about. This
That's a
feature?
trail and a fence.
Okay, great, thanks.
It's a little confusing, it's a lot of jumble there, it's hard to get it to look right, but
Can't read it from
that's
here.
what it is.
Thank you.
And a telephone pole and a wire. So it's all in one spot.
No further.
If there's no other comment, I'd request that you close the public hearing, and then I would also like to know if you could have a resolution for the next meeting.
Well, if there's no objection, we'll have the staff start drafting the resolution, but since we have to wait for the matter, we'll keep the public hearing on.
That's, okay, but would you have a resolution for the next meeting?
Hopefully.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on the
So
agenda.
so before you go on, this is, public hearing's going to be adjourned to December 5th?
Yes,
Okay. That should go on the record.
yes.
Good night.
Good night. Next item on the agenda is Village Rossing Water Treatment Facility at 25 Reservoir Road. This is a continuation of the public hearing. Applicant here? Welcome back.
Thank you, Chairman. So we're here this evening with, to ask any additional questions that may have come up since the last hearing, and with the assumption that you're considering a resolution for the same.
Does the board have any more questions at this time? Okay, staff? Any members of the public here interested in this matter? Seeing none? Okay, what's the next
Same
step?
thing as the last item, we can leave the public hearing open and prepare a resolution for the next meeting.
Happy?
Yes, Barry,
Great.
I want to take this time to thank Chairman Chin and the board and your consultants. And hopefully it was a very thorough process on both ends. And I'll also take this opportunity to let the residents know, particularly of Waterview and the surrounding Crocodile area, that everything we stated in this meeting will be in fact followed through. Andrew Teese and I, the water superintendent, and myself as the director of public works, are not only here for the application, but will be through this project and take it all the way to the decommission of the existing plant. So we're involved on every step of the way. So if anything ever comes up, we have a close working relationship with Sandy and her office, and we'll be very responsive, we promise you that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night. Next item on the agenda is the learning experience at 530 North State Road, site plan amendment, continuation of the public hearing.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome back.
Thank you, and members of the board. We're here tonight. We believe we have responded to the last set of comments. Among other things, the plans were revised to now change the signage so that the wall sign that was facing North State Road directly has been removed. The wall sign that's facing the parking lot facing north, as the lighting has been changed, and we can show you that on the detail if you want. So it's now externally lit as opposed to internally lit. It is in the details. We have revised the facade facing North State Road a little further to make it look, we believe, even more as if it's a front facade. I think you can see it up there. Our wetlands consultant, as in accordance with what Steve Coleman requested, submitted the 5-year maintenance plan for the wetlands and submitted the invasive species removal and water course restoration plan and stream monitoring data. We have responded to the traffic comments, and we have added to the site plan the turning templates that were requested by FP Clark. That is a brief summary. If there are specific questions or issues that you would like us to address, our whole team is here. We certainly have the drawings and can take you to portions of those that are relevant. And it is our hope that when we're finished tonight, that you'd be able to direct your consultant, well, that you'd be able to close the public hearing and direct your consultant to draft the negative declaration and a resolution of approval for future action. If you look at, you did get a memo from Steve Coleman, which you probably just received. We believe it basically supports everything we've submitted and that we're pretty much done with that aspect, at least as the consultant's concerned. Obviously, your board is the ultimate decision maker, but we think we've addressed everything.
Okay. Staff have any comments at this time?
No, unfortunately, we received PDFs on Monday and paper prints tonight. And no, we have no comments for this evening.
Does the staff need time to review the new submissions?
Yes.
Does the board have any comments at this time, or questions?
Only to say that I've read Steve Coleman's memo, and it looks like you've addressed his concerns, which in turn address the concerns and comments of the town EAC. And the responses seem good to me, so I'm satisfied.
So, so basically, we could look forward to the staff doing a full review of this and possibly drafting a resolution if it's feasible at the time?
Well, a negative declaration, if it's feasible, for the next planning board meeting for December 5th. And then the applicant can go seek the variances and get variances for the signage from the Zoning Board of Appeals and then return to the planning board.
See, I think Mr. Stillman and I had discussed this briefly, and we understand you can't act tonight, but assuming you're satisfied, staff comments show that the issues have been resolved, we would strongly ask that you, at the next meeting, adopt both the negative declaration and the resolution of approval. There's no impediment to that. Your resolution would obviously be conditioned on us getting the variances for the signs. I would hope that when that variance is being heard, based on what I heard at the last meeting, you're comfortable with that signage. And we understand that if for some reason we were denied those variances, we would have to come back with revised signage and have the site plan amended.
To the best of my knowledge, and Adam and I have talked about this, but to the best of my knowledge, in the last 40 years, the planning board has not followed that procedure because it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the Zoning Board of Appeals once the planning board has approved the application subject to getting the variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals. So even though there's, and I would defer to Kathy, there's no legal impediment to approving this subject to getting variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals, that's not the practice of the planning board and has not been the practice of the planning board for the last 40 years.
Well, I mean, technically, the plan is zoning, what the plan in front of the board right now is not zoning compliant. It's not zoning compliant with respect to the signs, so you'd be issuing site plan approval on a zoning non-compliant plan. That's why the procedure generally is to go do the neg deck, go to the zoning board, get the variances, and come back to this board for site plan approval.
It would seem to be more efficient for the applicant just to wait for the Zoning Board of Appeals to finalize whatever findings they need so the planning board can move completely forward.
Does the zoning board need the neg deck before?
Yes.
Okay.
The zoning board could, I believe, open their hearing, but they can't,
Right,
they
so
can't
they
close
give
it
the neg deck,
and
right.
issue us the variances.
They can't take an action unless the neg deck has been issued. So, like Adam said, of course, they can consider it and open the hearing, but they can't take an action.
You know, we're just concerned with the scheduling going forward. We don't want to miss too much time. I know we've already been told that there may not even be a quorum at the next zoning board meeting, so we were hopeful to get things wrapped up sooner rather than later.
When is the next zoning board?
The next zoning board meeting is actually before, it's a couple days before the next planning board meeting, if my understanding is correct, which is also unfortunate. So I guess it's theoretically possible if we got the negative declaration on the 3rd, 5th, we could be at the next zoning board meeting. Is your board meeting a second time in December?
19.
So it would be theoretically possible for us to come back?
Yes. Right, if this board has a meeting on the 19th and planning meets between the 5th and the 19th, then you can get a tour at the 19th.
Understood.
Any other comments at this time?
I would just ask you again to issue a to direct Dave to issue a negative declaration and perhaps close the public hearing tonight.
Well, we won't be closing the public hearing because we're going to wait for the zoning board findings. But Dave, do you have anything more to say at this time?
No.
Could you take us through the new renderings that?
Oh, absolutely. Matthew Jormel again from the client.
So this was the original rendering, and it shows some trees in front that we've adjusted based on our consultant's latest plan, but it just showed a roof line and a side of a building that was facing North State Road. We've added, and I have a two-dimensional elevation I'll show you, but we've added dormers, and we've added pilasters, brick pilasters that come up, and we've added symmetry, which I'll show you. When we were here last, we presented the elevation that's what I'm pointing to, one up from the bottom, and it was suggested that we add dormers and add some additional information. So what we've done is we took the sign off, first of all, reduced the number of signs on the building. We've added dormers, we've added pilasters that support the gable, the main gable. And the doors, there was a door here that was sort of breaking the symmetry of the facade. We moved it to the other side of the building. So when you look at the building from the street now, it's relatively symmetrical, with the exception of one door versus a window in the middle, but we balanced it. So there's a rhythm to the windows, there's pilasters, there's dormers. So it looks more like a front than it does a side and addresses the street. There was also a request the last time we were here to take the signs that were proposed to be internally illuminated and illuminate them with spotlights or goosenecks. So one, we removed one building sign, and two, we would have the same sign, but we've added, if you look closely at the drawing, you'll see there are two gooseneck lights that come over and hang over and illuminate the sign. So it's not internally illuminated, it's illuminated. And we would do something similar with the monument sign. We would have spots on the ground that shine up at it as opposed to the light glow. And again, just to remind you, this facility is open 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. So the applicant would have no problem turning their signs off after 7 p.m. at night as well. Thank you.
I really appreciate the efforts.
Thank you.
There's always a but, isn't there?
No, is there?
There's a but from David, I can
Yeah,
tell.
yeah, there is. I
And
don't know how the
David's-
planning board feels about it, but I would prefer the signage up there, because then it would look even more like a front facade.
We could certainly add it back. We took it off because I think there was a comment about too many signs.
You see this?
I see that point.
I see that point.
Entirely, well, it's up to the zoning board of appeals, of course, but you could always recommend the variance.
I think we have enough signage, but that's me.
I don't have an opinion on this.
I'm neutral on this one. Also,
Yeah, I'm kind of neutral on it too. I'm just trying to.
Could you flip it back to the other version?
Yeah.
Just so Lucas.
It's not necessarily a right or wrong, so if that's the way you feel, it's fine.
Yeah, just leave it there.
There it is.
Yeah.
This was the version, two-dimensional version.
David, that you prefer the other.
Well, this one didn't have dormers.
Right, the dormers certainly.
I prefer the other architecture with the sign, but it's up to you. You know what I mean?
That, with the sign.
Yeah, because then it looks like a real front facade.
There was, yeah, there was no dormer.
We're not
That far back.
too far back.
I'm not sure there was an in-between render.
Oh,
I
oh,
don't think there was an in-between render. So that was originally presented, there was a request to make it look more like a storefront, the dormers, I'm sorry, gable was added with pilasters and a sign, and then there was a request to, there was a thank you but a but, and then we came back and added dormers and realigned the windows and doors so that they were symmetrical, and we removed the sign. So there was, at the last hearing, there was quite a bit of discussion about over signage and lights. We're happy to put it back if that would be the board's preference. Obviously, we have to go for variances on the signs one way or the other, so.
From my perspective, and it doesn't necessarily enter into your board's decision on aesthetics, the less of the variance we need from the zoning board, the better. And if there isn't a strong preference one way or another, I'd rather go in with the three signs being the wall sign, the blocks, and the monument, as opposed to a fourth sign as well. If there were a strong preference, we'll go in with all four.
We already have a sign along the street. I think it's enough.
Yeah, we'll leave it up to your discussion there.
We're gonna leave it off then, because we think it's, we don't think it's necessary either, because we have a monument sign.
Okay, what other steps do we need to take at this time?
Well, you could authorize the drafting of a negative declaration for the next planning board meeting on the 5th. And I think Kathy and I recommend that's about as far as you go.
Okay.
I'm going to speak for her.
So hopefully we'll be able to finish it by the next time we meet.
If you want to ask if any members of the public.
Are any members of public here for this matter? Seeing none? Thank you.
Thank
We
you
can
very much.
Adjourn it
Make a
to
motion.
the,
Date,
Oh.
we need to
Date
first
certain.
fifth.
Right.
Good
December
day,
fifth.
We need to make a motion, draft and make it.
No, it just be a direct us to.
Okay.
Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Take care.
Next item on the agenda is Santucci Shermer subdivision on 37 and 41 Down Road. Line lot line amendment. The applicant here? Yes.
Yes.
Evening.
Good evening. My name is Mark Shorgan. I'm with Debutung Schwalbe here representing the owner. My understanding is the planning board meeting was closed last week, and I was here to... Public hearing was closed last week, and I'm just here to any additional questions you may have.
Does the board have any questions at this time? No? Okay. Staff have any more questions?
Does the town made any progress about the trees?
No, I don't see any good questions. I don't think so. But let's check.
I still think there's an opportunity to just plant them right across the street from town property.
Has that been suitable? Right on the street.
Right along the street.
Same street, right? So, Sandy, do you happen to know? Has the town board acted on the tree matter? Tree bank matter? Yes, not.
But what this does, there's a condition in here which basically says, let me turn to it. The applicant shall make a payment to the town tree bank fund in an amount to be determined by the Austining Town Board. So it's a condition that doesn't have a dollar amount in it yet.
All right. Does the applicant feel comfortable with that? It's an open-ended.
Say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. We have much of a choice, but yeah.
Okay.
Do we have the resolution?
I drafted, or you asked me, well, let's go back. At the
Right.
last planning board meeting, the planning board closed the public hearing
Right,
and then asked me to draft a resolution of approval.
right.
And I've drafted this resolution of minor subdivision plat, steep slope permit, and tree removal permit approval. And Kathy and I are thinking that, Kathy is thinking, that this should be 3 separate resolutions. But that would be just a matter of reformatting this. There's a negative declaration included in this, and it would be simple to reformat it. So all the language is here, and I could walk us through this, and then the planning board, if it wants to, can issue the neg deck and grant these 3 separate approvals, and I would just recast reformat the resolution itself into 3 separate.
Why don't we do
resolutions. Okay. So, why don't I paraphrase through the whereas clauses? This, in the first whereas clause, we have the owners of the property. We state that who they are and state that these approvals are to subdivide 2 existing lots into 4 lots, which is known as the project or proposed action. In the next whereas, we give the address and the tax map designations of the 2 parcels, the 2 existing parcels. Next whereas, we state that the property is 5.05 acres in size and is in an R15 zoning district. And then we state that existing on 37 Croton Dam Road are 2 single-family homes, and the lot known as 41 Croton Dam Road is vacant. And in the next whereas, we state that the 2 existing lots would be subdivided into 4 for a total of 4 single-family homes, 2 of which are existing and 2 of which would be new homes. And then relative to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, the planning board deems this an unlisted action and has circulated the board's intent to be lead agency and has received no objection thereto from the other involved agencies. And that was more than, I guess, I'm not sure when that was exactly.
September 5th.
Okay. So, yeah, I think it was circulated in July, actually.
Yes,
Yes.
circulated. in
So that's more than
July.
30 days, and the planning board acknowledged the fact that it's become the lead agency. Then we have in the next whereas, the application submission in terms of various documents and a set of plans, 10 plans, and those 10 drawings listed above constitute the subdivision drawings. I'm at the top of page 2 now. And then the next whereas, a survey was also submitted. And then the next whereas is the planning board is familiar with the subject property and its surroundings and has reviewed the project in accordance with various chapters of the town code, including the zoning law. And then the fact that the planning board referred the applications for steep slope permit and tree removal permit approvals to the EAC for its advisory opinion. And then the fact that the planning board has referred this to the Westchester County Planning Board in accordance with 239L of the General Municipal Law, and the Westchester County, in the next whereas, the Westchester County Planning Board has not responded to the above-mentioned referral to date. And then the planning board has reviewed the project as a minor subdivision, as defined in the subdivision regulations, and then that a public hearing on the project was held on October 17, 2018. And now therefore be it resolved in accordance with seeker, the planning board hereby adopts a negative declaration for the proposed action for the following reasons and finds that the project will have no significant adverse impact upon the environment. And then we have 18 reasons and a rationale. Would you want to read those to yourselves?
Yes.
And I did email this over to y'all today, just in case you'd have an opportunity to review this. I think my voice won't hold up. So if you read 1 through 18, there's a rationale for the issuance of the negative declaration.
Yeah.
I wrote this section very slowly in case you don't read too fast. Sorry. I'm here all week.
Okay. And it's gonna be longer than it.
Kelly, I have one question, which is, Dave mentioned that you think this should be broken into 3 resolutions, and I guess my question to you is, how do you think this should be broken down?
It actually follows in here. If you look at the bottom of page 6, the first approval is minor subdivision plat approval, and then there are various conditions. And then starting at page 10, I think it is.
Okay.
The first be a further resolve.
Yep.
That starts the tree removal permit approval. And then that goes until page 11.
11.
And at the top of the page, we have the steep slope protection approval.
Okay, so then, all right,
So
so those would be the
it's
3.
It's very easy
Gotcha.
to just
Okay.
chop this in thirds.
Okay, so
Okay, so we're at the be it further resolved, toward the bottom of page 6. The planning board hereby grants minor subdivision plat approval to the project as expressed on the subdivision drawing subject to compliance with the following conditions and modifications and any other requirements which must be met by law. Number 1, prior to the endorsement of the subdivision plat by the planning board chairman, the following conditions shall be fulfilled to the satisfaction of the planning board. A subdivision plat prepared by a licensed land surveyor shall be prepared by the applicant and shall be submitted to the planning board for review by the board and its consultants and for approval by the board. Subdivision plat shall bear all pertinent and appropriate notes and elements from the subdivision drawings. B, the subdivision drawings and the subdivision plat shall be such that they meet the satisfaction of the planning board's engineering consultant, including but not necessarily limited to the fulfillment of the comments in his memorandum dated October 3, 2018, and any subsequent memoranda, and said plans shall thereafter be endorsed by said engineer. C, the subdivision plat shall be endorsed by the Westchester County Department of Health, indicating the department's approval of the water supply and sewage disposal facilities. E, the applicant shall submit a letter from the Village of Ossining which confirms the adequacy of the municipal water system to serve the proposed lots. The applicant shall submit a statement signed by the town receiver of taxes that indicates that all taxes due on the subject property have been paid. F, in accordance with section 277(4) of the New York State Town Law, the need for recreation fees and the amount of said fees as required by the town zoning law have been established based upon the analysis performed by Frederick P. Clark Associates, Inc., the town planning consultants, in the study entitled Park, Playground, and Recreation Analysis dated March 23, 1994. In accordance with section 251A1B of the zoning law and chapter A203 fees of the town code, the applicant shall submit to the town a recreation fee for one additional home in the amount required by the town's Ossining Town Code at the time of the signing of the subdivision plat by the planning board chairman. G, all outstanding application review fees, including consultant review and legal fees, shall be paid in full. H, the following conditions shall be fulfilled to the satisfaction of the town planner. And then we quote from the tree protection chapter of the town code regarding the replacement of 50% of the trees that would be removed, and then there's an analysis of the trees that would be removed and replaced. And then in the middle of page 8, the above-mentioned letters state that the proposed deciduous trees will be 3 inches in diameter at installation, and that the proposed flowering trees would be 2 inches in diameter. However, the landscape plan states that the deciduous trees will be 2.5 to 3 inches in diameter, and that the flowering trees will be 2.5 inches in diameter. These two sources of information shall be reconciled, and the letters and our landscape plan shall be revised accordingly. Further, the applicant shall make payment to the town tree bank fund in an amount to be determined by the Ossining Town Board. 2, a note stating that there shall be no direct driveway access to lots 1 and 3 from Croton Dam Road shall be provided on the subdivision drawings and subdivision plat. 3, site distance measurements for the existing and proposed driveway shall be provided. 4, the lot lines and the boundaries of the various easement areas for all 4 lots, because there are access easements that are going to be created for the existing lots as well, or the existing homes as well, shall be shown with bearings and distances, meets and bounds on the subdivision plat. Further, legal easements and maintenance agreements shall be submitted for the review and approval of the town attorneys for eventual filing. In addition, the subdivision drawings and subdivision plat shall denote the lots which benefit from the respective driveway easement areas. In accordance with section 176(9)(a)(1) of the town subdivision regulations, the approval of the subdivision plat shall expire 180 days from the date of the adoption of this resolution, unless the requirements listed above have been completed to the satisfaction of the planning board and the plat has been submitted for signature. The planning board may, however, extend the time periods for periods of 90 days each, in which the requirements must be fulfilled and said plat is to be submitted for signature if, in its opinion, the particular circumstances warrant such extension or extensions. 2, prior to the issuance of building permits for lots 3 and 4, the applicant shall, A, secure architectural approval from the architectural review board for the home on each lot, and shall submit to the planning board the legal easements and driveway maintenance agreements pertaining to all 4 lots which have been filed in the Westchester County Clerk's Office Division of Land Records and evidence of said filing. 3, the following are general conditions which shall be fulfilled as the project progresses to completion. A is our standard paragraph regarding application review costs, including consultant review and legal fees. B is our standard subdivision provision regarding the filing of the plat within 62 days in the office of the county clerk, Division of Land Records, from the date of the endorsement of the plat by the planning board chairman. And C is our standard condition regarding submitting 3 copies of the filed plat to the town building and planning department after it's been signed by the county clerk's office. D is our standard condition regarding all construction on the project being in accordance with best management practices. And E, our standard condition regarding no portion of this approval by the planning board shall take effect until all conditions herein are met. And be it further resolved, I'm sorry.
Let's make a,
Oh,
let's
stop
consider
there.
that
Yeah, a resolution.
a motion to consider.
I have one question.
Yeah, of course.
In section,
Which
under the,
page?
after, let's see, page 7.
7.
Second paragraph of F, it says that town recreation fee for the 1 additional home. I thought there were going to be 2 additional homes.
So there are 2 lots.
2 lots, each which will have 2, right?
Right, so with the lot on the right-hand side that exists on the right-hand side, someone could walk into the building department and ask for a building permit right now for 1 home and pay no recreation fee.
Oh, okay.
So they're adding 1 additional home to the lot on the right side, and no additional homes to the lot on the left side. So the net, in terms of additional homes that would require a rec fee, would be the one home on the lot on the right-hand side. Because they're entitled to a building permit on that lot right now without paying a rec fee. Okay? That's the way we've figured it out over the years. It's the net. Say you've got one great big lot like Rinaldi that's going to be subdivided, and it's going to be subdivided into, say, let's just say for the time being 9 lots. It would be n minus 1.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
That was my only question.
Okay, can I have a motion on
So moved.
this? Okay, so that takes care of this one item,
Including the neg deck, right?
including that, okay, so go through the next.
Okay.
So what I would just add to that is just a whereas clause acknowledging that the neg deck has previously been adopted, so it's just already there and that's separate.
In the next one, you mean?
Right, so when we separate this out, just have, before you start, just have a whereas clause noting that.
I was going to take the whole front end of the resolution, all the whereas clauses or the appropriate whereas clauses regarding the nature of the project, et cetera, et
Okay.
cetera.
Okay, that's fine. And you're gonna put
Including the neg deck.
including the whole neg deck, or just reference
Just
that
the
they
reference
issued
to
the
the-
neg, they already issued a neg deck?
Just reference it.
Okay, that's fine.
There's no need to include
Just reference it, not rewrite it.
it. Okay?
In the days before word processors, we would not have asked you to do
No,
this.
especially if I had to chisel it in stone. Okay, so you took care of the first resolution, right? So the second resolution would be with regard to the tree protection chapter. And there would be whereases, and then it would say, now therefore be it resolved that the planning board, taking into account the purpose and findings set forth in section 183.2 of the tree protection chapter of the Austin Town Code, hereby finds that And then if you could just read through those 8. Those are the findings that you would necessarily have to make in order to grant tree protection approval,
Okay.
tree protection chapter approval. And then at the end of those 8 findings, it says, and be it further resolved that the project is hereby granted tree removal permit approval, subject to the following conditions and modifications and any of the requirements which must be met by law. After approval by the planning board, the tree removal permit approval is valid for the duration of the construction of the project. All permits shall expire upon completion of the work specified herein. Permits may be renewed by the planning board. The standards for issuance of renewals may, at the discretion of the planning board, be the same as for the issuance of the original permit. And that's the end of that resolution.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Make a motion?
Second. Seconded. Nobody opposed? Okay.
We didn't get an EAC memo on this tree plan, have we?
I don't think so.
Okay. Carolyn, did the EAC mention anything about this matter?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Cindy?
We sent it in June,
And
but
did
we
they send
haven't
anything?
received
Oh.
anything.
Oh, okay. All right,
We did refer it
great, okay. Then I have no objection.
Okay. Third resolution?
Did you adopt it?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So the third resolution would be
Same thing with the whereas clause.
same thing with all the whereases, including a reference to the negative declaration that the planning board issued tonight. So it would start out, now therefore be it resolved, or it would continue rather to now therefore be it resolved, that the planning board, taking into account the purpose and findings set forth in section 167-1 of the steep slope protection chapter of the Town of Austin Code, hereby finds that, and then if you could just read those 5 items, those findings. And then it says, and be it further resolved that the project is hereby granted steep slope permit approval subject to the following conditions and modifications and any other requirements which must be met by law. After approval by the planning board, the steep slope permit approval is valid for the duration of the construction of the project. All permits shall expire upon completion of the work specified herein. Permits may be renewed by the planning board. The standards for issuance of renewals may, at the discretion of the planning board, be the same as for the issuance of the original permit. Period. That's the third resolution of approval.
Can I have a motion?
So move.
Any second?
Second.
Any objections?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Rinaldi subdivision, 39 Stark Town Road, 10-lot subdivision. Applicant? Good evening.
Thank you. We haven't submitted any additional information this time. We're talking about some additional work that will be submitted to the board. We're just looking for some comments and
JB, you submitted plans, and they've been reviewed now.
Right.
So there was no need for you to submit anything additional. So we'll just go over the comments.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks. So shall I go over these comments?
Yes.
Okay. So starting on page 2, under zoning compliance.
No, this is here. Rinaldi? Is there another Rinaldi from
There's one, sure.
This copy's here. There's another. Same objective. Yeah.
Oh. Do you need one as well?
That
Okay, so under zoning compliance, the zoning data table on sheet S1 appears to show the following dimensionally non-compliant situations. Proposed lot width for lot 8 and proposed lot width for lot 9. We defer to the town building inspector with respect to where there are variances needed in each case above. This is a subdivision of a relatively large property. It does not seem reasonable that the applicant could make a plausible case for the need for variances at this juncture. The applicant should make an effort to eliminate the need for variances through design modifications before seeking relief from the zoning board of appeals. The point I'm trying to make is that this is a blank sheet of paper. There's no reason for variances at this point in time. Lot depth and lot width are defined by the zoning law as follows. Lot depth is the minimum distance from the street line of a lot to the rear lot line of such lot. Oh, before starting out, I should mention that this was a 9-lot subdivision. The last plan added a lot to the subdivision, 10 building lots instead of 9 building lots. So lot depth is defined as the minimum distance from the street line of a lot to the rear lot line of such lot. Lot width is defined as the average distance between side lot lines taken at the front yard or building line and measured at right angles to the side lot lines or along a parallel to the street. We question certain of the measurements in the zoning data table on sheet S1 which are provided to show compliance with the minimum lot depth and lot width definitions above. Sheet S1 should graphically show how minimum lot width and lot depth were measured for each lot. Based upon the latest plan, we question whether the subject property can realistically accommodate 10 lots. It seems like a bit too much to me. B, measurements and calculations should be provided to aid in verifying the numbers provided to show compliance with section 176.18F1 of the subdivision regulations. JB has some percentages on the plan, but we really need measurements in order to verify those percentages. 2, stream buffer. Sheet S1 should clearly indicate and label the 50-foot wide buffer for the existing water course on the subject property. 3, driveway for lot 3. Unless there is good reason or reasons to the contrary, the driveway for lot 3 should be on the proposed roadway rather than on Stormytown Road, and a note stating that there will be no driveway access to lot 3 from Stormytown Road should be provided in the subdivision drawings and plat. 4, site distance. Site distance measurements for the proposed roadway and for the driveway for lot 1 should be provided. Further, the driveway for proposed lot number 1 should be made more perpendicular to Stormytown Road if possible. Extra lots. The applicant in the drawings should address the reasons for the proposed watercourse lot and for the proposed lot along the roadway in the westerly corner of the subject property. 6, tree replacement. The subdivision plan should provide more information in order to show compliance with section 183.12G of the tree protection chapter of the town code, which states in part, quote, in connection with all subdivision and site plan applications, the project shall meet the minimum requirement for the replacement of 50% of the total aggregate diameter of trees proposed for removal with new trees in accordance with a plan for tree replacement. A table of the existing trees proposed to be removed with their respective species, sizes, and conditions should be provided. Further, the sizes of the plantings in the proposed planting legend table should be specified. 7, on the top of sheet T1, the title should be revised to reference a 10-lot subdivision rather than a 9-lot subdivision. And all references to site plan on the drawing should be changed to subdivision plan. That's it.
I didn't have any written comments, but from my perspective, this was kind of more of a conceptual plan. We really need to kind of get some more information in terms of road grading, road profiles. This job will require a stormwater pollution prevention plan. You know, as it appears, and correct me if I'm wrong, JB, but it would appear you're just dealing with the runoff from the lots, that the runoff from the road is not addressed. So that really needs to be handled in a more comprehensive way. So, you know, some more civil design issues
Yep.
that need to be developed here before I can, to really make any substantive comments on the application.
And just to point out, that is a stream course that is, that
Right, there's a
crosses
pipe
under
stream
the
that
road.
bisects the
Yeah,
property.
and
Yep.
continues up, yeah.
Yep, yep. No, I've been on the side of the wall.
Any other comments from the board?
Just a reminder that last meeting I asked that in the next set of drawings that you show that as a stream course as a tributary to the Sing Sing Kill, as opposed to just saying water course.
Okay.
Okay, no further comments from the staff this time?
Someone's here to ask questions about it from the public. I know it's
Is there
not
members of the
here.
public interested in this matter? Sorry.
Hi, my name is Linda DiChiara. I'm a Torview member, which is an adjoining property. I'm also a Torview board member. We just wanted to let the board here know that we only heard about this project on social media this week, and our members may be a little concerned. We have no statement to make, we have no feelings one way or the other, but we will need to have a board meeting and explain to our members that this is a possibility, because this property does abut us, and we're just concerned about any potential issues we may have.
You were not notified?
No, we were not notified. That's the purpose of me being
We
here.
haven't,
It's not a public
we
hearing.
haven't done a public
Oh,
hearing
oh,
yet, so
okay.
you will
Right,
be,
right,
you will
right.
be
Okay.
notified, and there
We-
will
we
be,
just want-
there will
right.
be a public hearing.
Okay, okay, that's fine. We'll get notified in what way? By letter? How does that?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Are any of these preliminary plans available to the public now if they choose to
I think they're on.
Yes.
look? They're on site?
So you probably would want to wait until they're revised, considering all the comments that you made.
True, but if they're gonna have a board meeting sooner rather than later, they might want to see at least what's being talked about.
Okay,
That's great.
So they're online, they might change,
right.
and perhaps they could change according to the comments of your board, so.
Okay, but we will have an opportunity, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the public at this point? Seeing none? Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is FCCA Westchester, 590 North State Road.
Good evening, board.
Do you have any more comments at this time?
No, actually, we're here to hear your comments. We have no additional submissions at this point. Our landscape plan got a little delayed in its completion. The landscape architect had some health issues, and she got a little behind, but she's working on it, and we should have that finalized shortly. But we're hoping to hear some comments. I see there's a memo at this point, and address what we can.
Does staff want to go through some of the highlights of the memo?
Sure. So turning to page 2. Section 183.12G of the tree protection chapter of the town code provides, and essentially what this paragraph provides, and when you're probably familiar with it, there has to be a replacement of 50% of the total aggregate diameter of trees proposed for removal with new trees, or payment into a tree bank fund, or placement of trees on an alternate site. So
I think as part of the landscape plan, hopefully this is being addressed to some degree as well, but we'll make sure that the landscape architect is made aware of this, so we can comply to the extent possible, figure out how we're going to comply.
Sure. So number 2, site distance measurements for the existing driveway should be shown on the site plan, even though you've been using that, or SPCA has been using that for many years. We require when something comes to site plan approval to show that.
Should be no problem.
Okay, then there's a section 200-18D2, and this has to do with the northerly property line. And what it says is between any non-residential use and a residentially used lot or residentially zoned lot, a buffer of at least 20 feet wide with native non-invasive landscape screening shall be provided. And it talks about the screening. And the possibility of using a fence. Let me just read through the whole thing. Such planting shall be a mix of evergreen shrubs and coniferous and deciduous tree species. Said coniferous tree shall have an initial height of at least 6 feet. Said deciduous tree shall have a minimum caliper of 4 inches as measured 12 inches above finished grade, and said trees shall have an expected ultimate height which suits their intended purpose and shall be planted close enough to form a visual barrier. At the sole discretion of the approval authority, a 6-foot high wall or fence suitable in appearance to the surrounding area may be substituted for or be required to supplement the landscape plantings as a visual barrier for the residential property from the non-residential use. All fences shall be installed with the more attractive side facing neighboring properties. So the property to the north is obviously a Newcastle, and I frankly don't know whether this section applies or not.
There already is there is existing screening on the property right now between the property and the.
I know there's a berm up there.
There's a berm, and the buildings from the condominium are somewhat set back. I think there's the roadway there. But as part of the plan, I believe there's going to be some beefing up of that screening in any event.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll be able to present something.
Is that the purpose? There's that easement that straddles the town line. It doesn't really say what it's an easement for. Do you know what the purpose of that is?
We actually don't know ourselves what that is. So
it almost seems like that maybe that's what it was intended for.
I don't think there's any, no intent with respect to buffer or.
There's no stated purpose anywhere.
There's got to be somewhere, but we are not aware of it at this point.
That berm was put in 20 years ago, perhaps, something like that. Well after the SPCA started using the site. And you may be right. If we went back to the file when that berm was put in, there was an approval process associated with that berm going in. It's kind of after the fact. I think the berm went in first and then it got approved.
Okay.
We could perhaps find out what the nature of the easement is. Sandy, could you look that up? Or send me the old resolution, or?
Oh, yeah, sure.
To my knowledge, nobody's ever asserted any rights with respect to that easement, so we are unaware at this point.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. There's also, does the SPCA own any property in Newcastle?
I don't think so, no. No, I don't think the property line.
There's obviously the easements on the other side of the line, so.
Am I right that easements are filed with the county, descriptions?
Should be something on file.
Yeah, check out there. I mean, the surveyor put it on the survey,
right.
so.
Okay.
Wayne, could you see if anything's filed with the county?
I could check. I guess does it say who the easement's in favor of? Because that's.
And it shows up on the survey, but it really.
In order to do a search, I guess I could look it up under SPCA if it comes up under the county clerk's website, but. And you said some of it's actually across the line on the other property as well?
Yeah, it straddles the line equally.
So it's like, this is the line here. So both municipalities on 2 different properties. And it doesn't really say.
And I think it's about where the berm is.
Yeah, no, the grading seems to indicate that.
Yeah, so it's probably for that.
For what purpose, though? I don't know.
Maybe a conservation easement of some sort? to make
I
sure
mean,
the
maybe
berm
it might
stays
be
there.
easier, the other projects newer,
Right.
the condominium.
Yeah.
They maybe, there's a clue if there was a plat recorded for that, at least what the purpose was on their
Maybe
side
the
of the line.
SPCA was concerned about noise coming from the condominium. It's possible.
All right, well, I assume we'll find out by the next available. Lighting plan?
So we need a lighting plan, and then that plan should bear the following notes, which are our standard notes. All lighting shown on this plan shall be directed and or shielded so as to preclude objectionable glare from being observable from adjoining streets and properties. The outdoor light shall be LED and shall not be incandescent or halogen. The outdoor light shall be on motion sensors from dusk until dawn, and shall not be on unless motion activated. And the color temperature of the outdoor lighting shall be less than or equal to 3,000 degrees Kelvin. And then, second number 4. Try as we might, we couldn't change that to a 5. A landscaping plan should be submitted. Wayne talked about the landscaping plan before, and then the plan should have our standard note regarding the maintenance of landscaping. All vegetation shown on this plan and other plans in this set shall be maintained in a healthy and vigorous growing condition throughout the duration of the proposed use of the site. All vegetation not so maintained shall be replaced with new vegetation, comparable vegetation at the beginning of the next growing season. 6, the tree removal table on sheet SA1 should have an additional column which specifies the condition of each tree proposed for removal. 7, a wetland buffer mitigation plan should be submitted for the review and approval of the planning board. 8, the site plan should address the nature of the small square fenced-in area at the rear of the site, which is partially within the wetland buffer. 9, the applicant should provide the locations, dimensions, materials, colors, typefaces, and any illumination associated with all proposed freestanding and building-mounted signage. 10, a vehicle turning template should be shown on the site plan to demonstrate that large trucks can traverse the proposed layout for the site. 11, any application materials specified in section 55-6 of the architectural review chapter which are not currently part of the application should be submitted by the applicant. 12, the layout plan states refer to architectural plans for additional information in quite a few places. The subject architectural plan should be submitted for the review and approval of the planning board. 13, sheet SD201 should show height dimensions, the proposed color of all materials, and the location and details for all building-mounted signage. Sheet SD201 are the building elevations. 14, a refuse enclosure detail should be made part of the plan set. And 15, the applicant should be asked to address the proposed plan for the disposal of animal waste within the wetland buffer area. There are dog runs proposed in the wetland buffer area, and that's what we're talking about here. This information should also be included in the applicant's environmental assessment form. And then that's it for now.
I guess my only question is with respect to maybe we should change some of the references to architectural plans. You know what the status of those plans are going to be at this point before we get the site plan approval. I'm not so sure that
we
we
might
should
be able to. I think I know, if I recall a few of those. I think we can add whatever details to our plans. I don't think they're. I think they had to do with a lot of the kennels, so we might be able to get those details from the architect.
That would be fine. I think that label or that note is in about half a dozen or 8 places.
Because that was all the kennels are on the side, I believe. That's what we did.
Yeah.
So maybe we could satisfy the.
You can do that. You don't need to submit the architectural plans if you can.
We can avoid it.
Yeah, sure.
At this stage.
Just include details.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can get them. Good. I'm sure they have something for us.
Regarding number 15 in particular, I wonder if the EAC should be asked to comment on whatever waste disposal plan they have, or they will be putting forth.
Well, they should-
especially for those dog runs, since they're within the wetland buffer.
Yeah, I would hope that the application for wetlands permit approval is being referred to them.
It has been.
Has been referred to them. The application for steep slopes permit approval has been referred to them. I would hope they would pick up on that and would comment on that.
Carolyn, you want to make sure that...
Not just that, but other aspects of the wetlands plan as well.
Right.
Right. This one in particular, though, stands out because if there's dog waste, right next to the stream, a rainstorm can wash it in, and
sure,
so it should be considered.
Carolyn, you can alert EAC.
Yeah.
Are there any cat runs?
No, they walk.
Okay.
Catwalks.
Excellent. Okay.
Anything from the board at this point? Okay.
We should maybe note for the record the receipt of the letter from the county.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the couple of recommendations in that letter is I don't know how the board feels about the take the sidewalk recommendation and,
There was a sidewalk, sorry, Dan Constance Engineering, there was a sidewalk that was actually put in front of the property and then obviously put in front of the storage. But there's a 15-foot landscaped island where the sign for the SPCA is that for some reason there was never a sidewalk put in there. So they're asking if we can just put a small connector that connects across between the pump station driveway and the access to our site. So I don't see a big deal.
I'm not sure who's using it, but
Yeah.
again, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, on the busy adoption day.
That's true.
People have to walk from the other lots.
That's true.
Not a big deal.
Bicycle parking.
Bicycle parking is not a big deal. If anybody wants to, I mean, that could be added anywhere on site.
You know how long you need to get some of these changes made? I mean, are you meeting again this month?
No.
It's the day before
December
Thanksgiving.
5th.
So, would be December?
December 5th is the next meeting.
That should be able to get a lot of that done.
Okay, good. Should be back.
Good. Any other questions at this time from the board? Any members of the public here on this matter? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have two items that were adjourned. We have minutes. Have we had a chance to look at the minutes, or any chance to look at the minutes yet?
I haven't.
We held over the ones from the 3rd. So there's two sets of minutes. Well, on the last meeting, I gave you the ones for the 3rd,
Oh.
but
Do we need to approve?
Didn't we vote on that?
I thought we voted on it.
on the 3rd, I thought, we said, well, wait, because there was a lot there, and
Oh, here it is.
Okay.
Who's in that question?
I have it.
Make a comment on the October 3rd one.
okay.
So regarding the Rayford DeVerne and Sons, in the first paragraph, about halfway down, it says, Mr. Noviello went on to discuss retaining walls. He said the front wall by the road will be natural stone, the rear and side walls will be some type of face cut stone or stone veneer. I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that he also agreed that it would be natural stone going into the driveway. So along the front and into the driveway, natural stone. Whereas in the back and the sides, we agreed to these other veneer possibilities.
I'm not sure if did he agree to the
That-
back
that
of the
was-
driveways?
Absolutely. That was early on agreed to.
It's not my recollection, but I can't
As it
swear
goes
to
into
it.
the driveway, the wedge that would result.
I think he qualified it by saying, depending on how much rock he could find.
I don't think so. No, I mean, he did say that, but he agreed to do it in natural stone in the end. He hedged at first, but he agreed.
Always ask for videotape.
I mean, that's an important aesthetic detail I
No,
don't
I
want to
know.
let go.
He did say that at one of the early meetings, but he definitely hedged on doing that.
No, he hedged in the back, because he originally agreed on doing the back ones in natural stone, and then he backtracked on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he meant just the front ones.
No. So we're gonna have to address this again.
No, that's what I'm
All
saying.
right, that's fine.
I agree.
Okay.
We'll just bring it up again.
Yeah, I don't want it to be set in stone.
Ooh.
No, I remember him saying it the first couple of meetings, but I don't think he agreed to it at this meeting.
Oh, agreed to it again. Then before we give him any approvals, we definitely have to bring that up again.
He's working on his complete file for the next meeting.
His complete file? What does that mean?
Complete submission.
Yeah, he said he's gonna bring in
We're
a
still
complete
missing the,
submission.
All the elevation.
Still missing
We'll
some.
see.
Right. He's been active out at the site with a excavator. He's, clearing and grading.
Does he have a permit for that?
I don't know.
Is he taking down trees?
He's taking down vegetation. I haven't looked closely enough. I mean, I actually don't really mind because he was operating from such a blind standpoint that, I figure it's good that he knows what his land looks like. But I have no idea if he has a permit to do what he's doing.
He said at the last meeting that he was going to remove some of that so that he could figure out the terracing.
Which is what Aaron
Yeah.
was pointing out, but he might still need a permit for that, for whatever he's doing. You don't know what he's doing.
Don't know what he's doing either.
I mean, as long as he's not removing vegetation over a certain diameter.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the invasive stuff that's grown on the property and some of the smaller stuff, he's kind of entitled to remove.
Right.
I think there was bamboo there too. that
A lot
he
of bamboo,
Said he wanted to
Yeah.
get rid of.
Yeah, it's hard to see through that. Yeah.
Sandy, could you just check at one point, see whether he asked for any permits on that?
No, I don't think he asked for permits, but
Okay.
I think he's just cutting
Random stuff.
bamboo
Okay.
and weeds and
Well,
all
in that case,
that.
it's not a big deal. Yeah, you folks see it differently.
I'm fine with that.
We could always send John to look at it and see what he's doing, if he needs a permit or
You
not.
guys are closer, aren't you? You just walk by. It's like, all right, never mind. All right, thank you. Any other additions to the October 3rd? Or do we have a motion on October 3rd minutes? It's only the three of us.
I have hesitations because in a way it implies.
Okay, all right, why don't we
Yeah.
wait off? You changed the language on it that you feel like you need to, we'll assess it again. So we'll
Okay.
hold off on October 3rd. Do we have a motion for the October 17th?
That seems okay.
Seems fine.
Okay.
We'll all read it out.
Okay, and could I have a motion?
So move.
Seconded?
Second.
Any objections? Okay, at least we got 1 minute out of it. And that takes us off. The next meeting is going to be December 5th, and then the following will be December 9th. Thank you very much.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving,
Thanksgiving,
everybody.
Motion adjourned?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, no objections?
A wild turkey came onto my